Nowadays, more and more music producers, musicians, and artists are handling some of their own mixes. With technology becoming more accessible, the process has gotten easier and tutorials are everywhere. It's safe to say that anyone with a connection to music has likely tried mixing by now. Artists and producers often create their own demo or even final mixes, so mixing isn't just for mix engineers anymore. In this video, we'll talk about crafting demo mixes. My mixing tips will help you bring your ideas to life, elevate your sound, and create a polished modern mix that meets the highest standards in music production. Hi, I'm Ivan. I'm one of the mix engineers of Major Mixing and Mastering Studio. For many years, we've been crafting mixes for top artists, and we've seen literally thousands of demo versions that producers and musicians bring into for editing, mixing, and mastering. Naturally, we've become familiar with all the common mistakes and hidden pitfalls that can slip into a mix. In this video, I'll be covering these common errors and the key elements you need to know when mixing your track. Each point is essential to creating a solid mix, so stick around till the end and you'll gain the knowledge you need to shape your mix or create a great demo of your song. Before I jump into the tips, let's talk about a few basics. These 5 things really set the foundation for working with songs. First, listen to a ton of high-quality music. This way, you'll start building an instinct for how a commercial track should sound, and you'll have plenty of reference points in your mind. Second, and I know this might sound obvious, but it's worth saying, practice is key. When I was learning, I mixed 1 or 2 tracks every day, and I'm still mixing daily. In mixing, just like playing an instrument, practice really does make perfect. So mix every day and keep sharpening those skills. Stay organized. Being a creative person doesn't mean you can have a jumble of unrecognized tracks or a mountain of messy projects. Disorder will only waste your time and impact the quality of your work. Always use reference tracks. Never mix without them. You might feel that your sound is unique, so original that no reference could apply, but that's a mistake. Reference tracks are the essential tools. Use them every time. The last but crucial rule in mixing is to make sure every choice is intentional. A bit of experimenting is fine, but avoid adding processing here and there without a clear idea of how or what you're trying to achieve. With every adjustment you make, you should know exactly what outcome you're aiming for. The right way to mix is by envisioning the final sound and shaping your tracks to match that vision. A professional engineer does 2 key things. First, they have a clear idea of how they want the song to sound. And second, they know the exact processing needed to take the track from where it is now to that perfect version in their mind. Follow this principle and make every move count. If you incorporate these 5 fundamental steps into your mixing routine, you're already halfway to success. Now let's dive into the mixing process and go over some tips for applying each type of processing to your multi-track. These are essential mixing techniques and tips. When you break down mixing, it actually consists of just a few core elements: balance, panning, equalization, compression, saturation, and time and pitch-based effects. Every kind of processing falls into one of these categories, so understanding how to use each effectively is key to achieving the best results. I'll walk you through them one by one. First up is balance. Balancing the elements is the foundation of a mix. Poor balance can make your mix sound too bright, too dark, flat, lacking dynamics, or just plain uninteresting. Many issues in the mix can trace back to unbalanced elements, so before diving into other processing, start by setting the balance. Use only faders and rely on your ear, your taste, and the reference tracks you've chosen to guide you. And don't forget to use automation to adjust the balance over time. A mix without automation feels outdated and lifeless. Movement and subtle changes are what make a mix feel modern and engaging. Next, let's talk about panning. Make full use of the stereo field. Here's what you need to know. Keep 4 tracks in mono: kick, snare, bass, and lead vocal. These should always be centered. Everything else should be spread through the stereo field. This approach helps you fit all elements perfectly, preventing them from competing for space. With proper panning, you'll also avoid needing extra compression or EQ, since elements that are further apart in the stereo field naturally clash less than those placed close together. So keep the kick, snare, bass, and lead vocals in the center. Guitars and their doubles should go left and right, and the same goes for backing vocals. For accompaniment instruments, create doubles and pan them left and right as well. If you leave these instruments in mono, you'll likely end up looking for ways to widen the mix later on, resorting to enhancers and EQ. However, artificial stereo widening won't give you the high-quality audio you're aiming for. Instead, focus on width from the start by using double takes of instruments and backing vocals, spreading them across the stereo field. The next step after balance and panning is equalization. The equalizer is arguably the most powerful and frequently used tool in mixing. With an EQ, you can do so much more than just brighten or darken the sound by boosting or cutting frequencies. Equalization also impacts the balance and dynamics of an instrument. Depending on the notes in the part, EQ adjustments can make certain notes stand out more or sit back. That's why it's essential to use EQ purposefully, knowing exactly what you want to achieve with each adjustment. Many online guides suggest using a high-pass filter on everything except the kick and bass, or applying high-pass, low-pass filters across the board. This approach is flawed. EQ is an aggressive tool that can significantly alter the sound by changing the phase or certain frequencies, adding delays in different regions, or even increasing sustain. Even a simple high-pass filter can impact the entire frequency spectrum. To understand how an EQ can shape sound, try this experiment. Take a short kick drum sample, use a narrow EQ band between 30 and 70 Hz, and make a 15 dB boost. You'll notice how the EQ can create a ringing effect. This is one reason why, in general, it's better to cut than boost frequencies. As with any tool in mixing, you should use EQ intentionally. If your reference track or ideal mix has a bright vocal, use EQ to make your vocal brighter. If your kick is missing low-end presence, attenuate everything except the low frequencies. Use high-pass filters only when there's unnecessary low-end information, or if a track's low frequencies are clashing with the kick and bass. EQ is also incredibly useful for clearing up space when instruments are competing in the same frequency range. For instance, to make room for a lead vocal, try attenuating vocal range frequencies around 400 to 700 Hz in the accompaniment. This same technique can help a lead instrument stand out by cutting frequencies in the accompaniment that mask it. It not only brings focus to the lead instrument, but also allows you to increase the volume of the accompaniment, helping to glue the elements together for a more cohesive mix. Lastly, EQ is an excellent for cleaning up resonances or muddiness in the mix. Trust your ears and compare your mix to a reference track to identify any problem areas. As a general guideline, try to use no more than 4 EQ bands. Traditional mixing consoles only have 4 bands, and that's usually all you need to create a solid mix. Next up is compression. Use compression for tracks with a high dynamic range. The key to compression is knowing how to use it properly. You can easily ruin a mix by either overcompressing or not compressing enough, so it's essential to understand which tracks or bosses require compression and what settings to apply. A compressor lets you control dynamics, increase sustain or attack, and even shape the timbre of a certain sounds. For instance, try using a compression on a kick drum with a 15 milliseconds attack and a 5 dB gain reduction. You'll notice that the kick sounds brighter and punchier, as the compressor quiets everything after the initial 15 milliseconds, making the attack more pronounced. Or take another example. Apply heavy compression to a bass guitar with around 15 dB gain reduction, and you'll introduce a lot of crunch, distortion that comes from altering the audio waveform. That's why we typically avoid compressing electric guitars or any instrument with distortion or limited dynamics, as it only increases distortion. For those types of tracks, a saturator is usually a better choice. Which tracks benefit from compression? It's usually those with high dynamic ranges like drums, piano, acoustic guitar, some synths, and vocals. A good starting point is 15 milliseconds attack time, 100 milliseconds release time, a 4:1 ratio, and a 5 dB of gain reduction. From there, adjust the settings to find the sweet spot where the track sounds its best. Some songs need aggressive compression, while others might not need any at all. Multi-band compression can also be incredibly useful when you want to target a specific frequency range while leaving others untouched. It's handy for treating sibilance or controlling dynamics in harsh frequency regions. In case of poorly recorded audio, multi-band compression can be a lifesaver, though its use often comes down to a personal preference. Some engineers use it regularly, while others don't. When it comes to applying compression on the master bus, use it primarily for monitoring purposes to check how the master will sound. Now, let's discuss the next tool, one whose importance can't be overstated: saturation. Once balanced panning, EQ, and compression are in place, I recommend adding saturation to almost everything. Why? Saturated sound is richer, denser, and translates better across different playback systems. Overall, it just sounds more engaging. Additionally, modern music increasingly incorporates vintage qualities, including the warmth and texture of saturation. So, after equalizing and compressing, try applying saturation. This can be achieved with tape emulators, plugins like FabFilter Saturn, or channel strip plugins that replicate console channels. Saturation can dramatically shape the way a track feels. It works by reducing dynamic range and adding harmonies which bring depth, color, and richness to the sound. Saturation can also make a track feel brighter or darker, depending on how you apply it. My advice is to saturate most of your tracks. That said, it's possible to overdo it and weaken the sound. To avoid this, carefully compare your mix with your reference tracks. Aim for a similar amount of saturation and, as with any processing, use it purposefully. Know the result you're aiming for. The next piece of mixing advice focused on time and pitched bass effects. As with everything in mixing, you'll adjust these effects according to your taste and the results you want to achieve. However, my recommendation is to set up send tracks for your time and pitch-based effects. Start by creating a template: 2 room reverbs, 2 short hall reverbs, 1 dark and 1 bright, 2 long hall reverbs, a quarter note delay, an 8-note delay, slap delay, spring reverb, a chorus effect, an advanced chorus like, for example, UAD Brigade chorus, for added colors, and standard flanger. This setup not only saves time and keeps things organized, but it also helps you achieve better mixing results. Having these effects as sends makes it easy to send them as separate tracks to an engineer later, giving them full control to adjust EQ or apply other processing as needed. Additionally, I recommend adding a touch of saturation to these effects, something like tape saturation, to bring unique color and character. A little EQ can also be beneficial, such as cutting low frequencies on reverb sounds to keep the mix clean. The next mixing tip is don't skip the breaks. Take a 15-minute break every 2 hours. Your ears and brain need a rest, and if you work too long without stopping, things can start to feel dull. Breaks keep you refreshed, which is important for creative work. You want to enjoy the process. Maybe you're someone who can focus for hours on a project without stopping. That might seem productive, but it has a downside. If you don't take breaks, you're always hearing the mix from the same state of mind. Mixing is better when you can come back with fresh ears. Try working in shorter sessions and taking breaks so you can revisit the mix when you are feeling energized, relaxed, or even in a different mood. This way, you get to see your mix from different angles. Otherwise, you might finish a mix that sounds great in the moment, but when you listen the next day, you suddenly hear flaws and feel disappointed. Seeing your mix from different perspectives as you work is crucial to creating a great track. And finally, make sure to listen to your mix on different playback systems. Musicians often come to our studio with demos they've mixed on just one set of headphones and haven't checked anywhere else. This is a common mistake. I'm not saying you need multiple sets of studio monitors, although it's useful to check your mix on high-quality monitors in a proper studio environment. However, it's also important to hear your mix in different surroundings. Try it out in a car. Think of how it will sound in a concert. Listen on headphones while you're out, in the quiet of your home, even in a bathroom. Check it on any different playback setup you have access to. Think about how your listener will experience it in real life, whether on high-quality speakers or basic earbuds. These different settings will reveal the main issue in your mix. You might notice that the vocal is too quiet, the overall sound is too dark, or some other flaw stands out. Listening in the right environments will make these mistakes much clearer, something you just can't get from the studio alone. The mixing tips I've shared in this video are fundamental and straightforward, but they're essential for creating a high-quality mix. If you're not familiar with these basics, it can be tough to produce mixes at an industry standard. By learning these key points, you'll find your work getting easier and your mixes sounding noticeably better. Follow these tips and your demos tutorials and mixes will start turning out pretty solid. That said, mixing takes time, learning, and a lot of practice. If you'd rather focus on your music and leave the mixing to someone else, bring your tracks to our studio. We'll create a professional mix for you at the level of top chart modern songs. And in just a few days, you'll have a ready-for-release master that you can feel confident about. That's it for this video. Have a fantastic creative day, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Remember, our online mixing and mastering studio is always here for you. And I'll see you in the next video.